Penguin Random House Audio presents Fierce Conversations, revised and updated. Achieving success at work and in life, one conversation at a time. Written and narrated by Susan Scott.
Introduction. The idea of fierce. When you think of a fierce conversation, think passion, integrity, authenticity, collaboration. Think cultural transformation. Think leadership. When she was 7, my niece Margot called to announce that she had just had an apostrophe. You know, an idea with shiny lights around it. She meant epiphany. But I've always liked the idea of having apostrophes. And my hope is that as you listen to this book, you will enjoy an apostrophe, at the very least a semicolon, maybe even an exclamation point, about the connection between conversations and your success and happiness, about the connection between conversations and leadership. I want you to get really good at fierce conversations. But before we go into the how, the 7 principles, it's important that you understand why. Picture a kaleidoscope. Do you remember the first time you held one up to the light and turned it? When one piece inside the kaleidoscope shifted, the entire picture changed. And once that happened, you couldn't dial back to the picture you had before. The 3 ideas I want to share with you in this introduction have been like kaleidoscopic pieces that, when they shifted, changed my view of the world and of myself in the world and, therefore, what is required of me. Once my view, my understanding shifted, it wasn't possible to return to conversations as I'd known them. Idea number 1. My first apostrophe arrived courtesy of Ernest Hemingway. In The Sun Also Rises, a character drinking with friends in a bar is asked, "How did you go bankrupt?" He answers, "Gradually, then suddenly." At the time I read this, I had been running think tanks for chief executives for 13 years, and it had more than 10,000 hours of conversations with industry leaders worldwide. I thought back over important events in the lives of my clients. A piece within my kaleidoscope dropped. Our careers, our companies, our relationships, and indeed our very lives succeed or fail, gradually, then suddenly, one conversation at a time. On the failing side, sometimes the questions were, how did we manage to lose our biggest customer, the one that counted for 20% of our net profit? How did I lose my most valued employee, for whom I had great plans? How did I lose the cohesiveness of my team? Why are we experiencing turnover, turf wars, rumors, departments not cooperating with one another, unengaged employees, long overdue reports and projects, strategic plans that still aren't off the ground? Why do we have so many reasons and excuses for things not being different or better than they are? And on a personal note, how did I lose an 18-year marriage that I was not prepared to lose? How did I lose my job? How is it that I find myself in a company, a role, a relationship, a life from which I've absented my spirit? How did I lose my way? How did I get here? Once the members of my CEO groups reflected on the path that led them to a disappointing or difficult point and place in time, they remembered, often in vivid detail, the conversations that set things in motion, ensuring that they would end up exactly where they found themselves. They lost that customer, that employee, the cohesiveness of their team, their marriage, their joy, one failed or one missing conversation at a time. In fact, it was often the missing conversations for which they were paying the greatest price. The conversations they avoided for days, weeks, months, even years that caused the most devastation. So many times I've heard people say, "I knew our strategy wasn't working, but no one was willing to tell our CEO. No one wanted to lose their job." Or, "I knew that customer was unhappy, but I didn't have the guts to come right out and ask." Or, "We never addressed the real issue, never came to terms with reality." Or, "My wife and I never stated our needs. In the end, there were so many things we needed to talk about, the wheels came off the cart." On the positive side, here was pretty amazing when a company finally landed that huge customer, the one their competition would kill for, or successfully recruited a valuable new employee, or a leader discovered that her team was committed to her at a deep level, or a team blew their goals out of the water, or a couple celebrated another happy year of marriage. They got to these good places in their lives, these amazing achievements, these satisfying career paths, these terrific relationships, gradually, then suddenly, one successful conversation at a time. And they were determined to ensure the quality of their ongoing conversations with the people central to their success and happiness. Imagine you're standing on a game board, the game of life, your life. How did you arrive at this square on the board, with all of your current results, professional and personal, spread out in front of you, some you like and some you don't? You arrived here, one conversation at a time. And when you project yourself into an ideal future, how will you get from here to there? Same way you got here, one conversation at a time. But what is a fierce conversation? Most people would agree that conversations are important, that if some conversations fail, it's a big fail. But why fierce? Doesn't fierce suggest menacing, cruel, barbarous, threatening? Sounds like raised voices, frowns, blood on the floor, no fun at all. In Roget's Thesaurus, however, the word fierce has the following synonyms: robust, intense, strong, powerful, passionate, eager, unbridled, uncurbed, untamed. In its simplest form, a fierce conversation is one in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation and make it real. This book was constructed as an imaginary conversation with you, the reader, with me doing most of the talking, being as real with you as I know how to do, and you doing most of the listening. Sorry about that part. Fierce conversations have 4 objectives, which we'll cover in depth throughout this book, along with the meaning of real. 1. Interrogate reality. 2. Provoke learning. 3. Tackle our toughest challenges. 4. Enrich relationships. The 4th objective, enrich relationships, points to the next kaleidoscopic piece. Idea number 2. Years ago, I heard Yorkshire-born poet and author David Whyte speak at a conference. David spoke of the young man, newly married, who was often frustrated, even a little irritated, that his lovely spouse, to whom he has pledged his troth and with whom he hopes to spend the rest of his life, seemingly wants to talk yet again about the same thing they just talked about last night, last weekend. The topic? The quality of their relationship. He wonders, why are we talking about this again? I thought we settled this. Could we just have one huge conversation about our relationship and then coast for a year or two? Apparently not, because here she is again. Around age 40.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?